Muy buenas tardes to everyone. First and foremost, I want to give a thanks out to Tony for allowing me to get on his platform, stories written by a current prisoner, and tell my story in the hope that I could be an eye opener for those that are headed into that prison path. Thank you. Well, for this story, I'm going to take you back to 1999. It's when I left reception, and the first person I hit was Tracy. Now, I don't know what had happened in Tracy, but when I got there, I knew that Norteños were on site. So it just happened that we came out the next day, we ran paths with the Norteños, and we took off. They sent us to the hole. They gave us a 128D transfer, and they sent us to Solano. Now, when we hit the 3 yard in Solano, we're just following a riot that just had happened on this yard. So within 2 or 3 days, it took off again. So they shot us back to the hole, and then they sent us to the other 3 yard. And and in this 3 yard, we lasted another couple days, and then went up again. They gave us another 128D with the transfer, and then they shot us to Vacaville. Now, we knew that once we hit Vacaville, we only had 72 hours after our reception time to get off the yard. But I hit there, and Vacaville was a little bit different. You know, usually when you're in waiting classification, they they put you in a separate building or at least a separate section. Here they threw you to a wing with everybody. We were able to come out to the hole, but we weren't able to come up to the yard yet because we didn't have our ID yet. So we were coming out to the hole, and I met a lot of good gente on there, that were there for dialysis, surgeries, for a lot of different reasons. But the one that stood out the most to me was this homeboy that had a big TF on top of his head. And once I got talking to him, I knew he was from Tortilla Flats in Compton. Now, he was a female individual, Just one day he came out in a tank top, and I seen the word metal on him. So right away I had to approach him about this. Because if he had a medal just to have on him, then I had to take care of it on the spot. So after we started talking. He started telling me a story. He's been down since '71, but in '82, '83, a riot happened in San Quentin with the blacks, and an accident happened, and I don't know what exactly happened, but he ended up hurting his back, and he was paralyzed for life. Now, he started telling me that when he first hit Vacaville, they had him in Willis in the hole, and they were bringing him out just for his treatments. But within time, first all the carnales started fading out. Then all his homeboys from the neighborhood faded out. So they classified him as inactive, and they kicked him out to the wings. Now, I don't know exactly how long he was been in Vacaville, but he's been there for a while. So I asked him if he had his paperwork, so he did. He showed me all his paperwork from the day he got busted till the day we were speaking, and everything checked out. Homeboy, everything was good on Homeboy. The only thing that you could say was bad was that he ended up in Vacaville. But, you know, he's confined to a wheelchair, constantly seeing doctors, and then, like, there's too many options. But the only reason I'm speaking about him is just to bring a little conscious on how how scandalous the program could be in there. This a man that gave his life on the streets to do a life in prison for the cause, fighting for the cause, gave his health, his well-being in prison, and then he just got threw out like he was a club. So it just stuck out. I don't know why in time I didn't really pay attention to it. Maybe because I was on the move too much. I had Tracy, boom, it was on. I had Solano, it was on. It was on. I didn't have time to breathe to really sit down and analyze things, I guess. But I just thought I'd share this guy's story just to show you how quickly you could be thrown out. But back to the story, I apologize. So within a day or so, they started spreading word around that a norteño had taken off on a sureño on the yard or somewhere on the prison. So they were requesting all the sureños to go out to yard. Now, mind you, I had not been classified, so I asked this wood if he could loan me a white tee, some state boots, just so I could go out there and see what was going on. A few days earlier, I had met this camarada on that prison. They call him Serio from Pacas. He was there waiting on a surgery. So when I went out to yard, I seen him, so I went out to the table where he was at because I didn't really know nobody. So I started introducing myself to everyone, and everybody started saying, what should we do? So myself and other camaradas started saying, there we shouldn't be even be asking what we should do. We gotta take off. We give these guys time to take off on us, and it's a wrap. I mean, look how many of them there is, and look how many of us there is. So this guy started right away saying, nah, 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 Charles. I got this yard, and we're gonna stalk. There ain't gonna be no riot, nothing like that here. So I started saying, wait, what? I told him, you have this yard? I told him, how long you been here? So he told me 3 years. And I told him, maybe, and you have this yard? This is a no state yard. How can you have this yard? So I just remember I told him, we're going to take off. If you want to follow suit, follow. If not, we'll make sure you go back there and answer up for it. Because, they ended up putting hands on a camarada. And nobody could put hands on a camarada without us reacting towards it. So, needless to say, he followed suit. You know, we ended up rushing them, but in reality, they beat us down. Man, they stomped us down. Because when we hit the hole, we actually were reading the paperwork, and there was only 15 camaradas that went out there, and there was 115, 50 of them. So, I could sincerely say they had their way with us because we got stomped down. But once we hit the hole, we went out to the group yard, and I started pressing on Homeboy more, just for the simple reason, that, like I said before, I was trying to earn mine. So anything I could get my hands into, I was in it. And another thing is I had a big pride, and I felt like Homeboy was trying to insult my pride by telling me what to do, knowing that he was in the wrong. But once we were talking, I asked him, hey, who who you working for? And he told me he had that yard for Lalo from Lomas. Now I have never met this individual and or nothing, but I know of him, you know, and he's a solid camarada or carnal. And I heard a lot of different stories about him, but they're far from the truth, you know. The senor died in good standings. He was always one of the ones. He was a savage. Of course, he had other canales politicking against him, but in these times, who didn't? But anyways, Cook told me to go ahead and run that. So I told him, okay, I'll run it. Which at the moment I had the Senor R from Riverside I could contact with these things, which I did. But what I didn't know that when he hit San Quentin, he had came down from Pelican Bay and he had slipped through the cracks because he was about to parole to Salinas. For those that know San Quentin, it was an old prison. It was easy to slip through the cracks in Quentin. And when I had wrote him about this, he had parole. So my stay in the shoe and not hear anything from him. So I ended up going to classification and they put me as a threat to Northern Hispanics due to all the incidents that had been involved and they sent me to a southern institution. It's when I went to Ironwood. Now in Ironwood, by this time, I had already done a couple favors for a couple of senores, like I mentioned before, from Hammett, Turtle from Ontario, Terrico from Bassett, um, Sapo from San Pedro, a couple canales. So in time, Crook hit the yard where I was at. So when he hit the yard, in my head I was like, ooh wee. So I started writing them, I started getting at them because, like I said, I felt he had respected me and had tried to stomp on my pride. This is how the stupid mentality works, You start painting pink Indians in your head and thinking, but in reality, it's nothing like that. But anyways, I got an answer back telling me we had brought this up to the hermano, and you will be getting a response direct from him. So which I did, and the response I got from Lalo was look, the whole stay in Vacaville from this guy, he was giving me in the mesa. I had him there. Everything's good for him. My advice to you is to go on about your business and just like this never happened. So I knew Lalo's reputation, and I knew this was not a carnal you wanted to cross paths with. So I left it alone. You know. Then it's when they gave me the yard and everything, and maybe a few months later, a guy they call Sniper from Lomas got there, and we started talking, and I seen that him and Kirk did not speak to each other, so I told him, hey, this is your homeboy, right? And he said, well, yeah, but he's a weenie. So, I told him what had happened, and he told me that's a lie. That's a lie, homeboy. Lalo protects him because he has a daughter with, I don't recall if it was a niece or some other different family member. And he says Lalo's always protecting him because of that. So I was like, what? So you mean to tell me that this fool stayed on a no stay yard 3 years when another camarada, if he would have stayed 73 hours, that would have been his career, and he's protecting him? I was like, Damn, you know. And the reason I say this is because I wanted to continue with the favoritism, you know. Is there favoritism in the organization? As I came to learn later down the line that it's how Lalo was, you know. He favored his homeboys. You know, he was one of those carnales that, yeah, he was an M member, but he never forgot he came from Lomas. Cause so he always shielded them. So it's just, it's a trip, you know. It's a trip because I could sit here and tell you 100 different stories about 100 different camaradas for a lot less that got sent to SMYs, that got stabbed, removed, you know. And here's a carnal protecting one that's a weenie that didn't want to man up and was hiding in the cut. But again, these stories are just to shed a little light on how prison works. Cause Lalo and Krug, they ain't the only ones. I shared yesterday about Pato. I could send you, I could tell you another story. A lot of people are familiar with Drifter from King Cobras. I know. I seen the comments on yesterday's video about a lot of you that were there when this was happening. You know, there was actually somebody commenting that he knew personally, Shadow from Southside Santana, Toro from Cherryville. If you heard my story right, that's the Toro I was talking about. So you do know what I'm talking about. You know, and you dare hear about this. So a lot of you guys could might heard the story about Drifter, you know. Drifter raped a little girl, literally under 10 years old, to the point that he had her. This was on the actual paperwork. But since at this time he was paying Hardy from King Cobras, if you touched him, you were through. Your neighborhood had a green light. So what could you do, right? So favoritism, it comes in the shape of family members, homeboys, tecatos. But again, I'll say it again before I end this video. Value yourself, value those that you grew up with, that know exactly how they are, but always, always value your family. At the end of the day, the only one standing with you will always be your family. I thank everybody for hearing me out. I hope everybody stays blessed. Thank you.